I will be brutally honest. Ain't nothing but being brutally honest. Coming at you with another video.
What is up, everybody? Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Tom Jensen, a.k.a. NinerCast. What's going on, dude?
Interesting time right now for the Niners with all that's going on.
Leading
up to the draft and all the Ayuk drama. It's fun times.
Fun times. Just like I'm doing a Bosa shrug because everybody's talking about the Ayuk trade. Is it going to happen? I don't know.
Nobody really knows.
But the agent, we'll go on the Ayuk topic first of all in the beginning, and then we'll go on the draft. But a lot of this drama, okay, he unfollows the Niners. So what? It's kind of the same tactics of what Deebo Samuel has done before.
Yeah. He's following the Deebo playbook in terms of unfollowing the Niners on Instagram and all that. But it's interesting that the agent shot down the talk out of Pittsburgh that implied that a trade is imminent. I don't think that's the case, but you can have both things true, where it's the Steelers are interested in trading for Ayuk, but the Niners aren't really moving in that direction. And so it's you can have talks, but let's see where it ends up. I think that all things being equal, Ayuk isn't going to get dealt, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll know by draft day. I mean, there's a lot of reports of other teams interested too, but like you said, the agent just shot them down. So it's like, no offense to the other Niners guy, Niners 24/7 guy on Twitter. I know he's been putting stuff consistently and he's been doing it, and it's kind of been getting people a little upset about it. And I'm not questioning the man's work, but you got to know when to get on point, my guy. Chase Sr., he's been doing this thing for a while, but when the agents actually kind of just told you it's false, hey, might need to.
Yeah, you need to respect that. The agent's got to be plugged in, but let's remember that the agent is walking a tightrope in that he was mentored by John Lynch, but he still needs to represent Ayuk. And so he needs to make a lot of people happy at the same time. It's difficult to do.
It is, especially getting Ayuk his contract he deserves. I mean,
yeah.
But let's say, I think because since Devontae Smith got a big contract extension, is that really going to affect more on Ayuk a little bit?
Yeah, I think that Ayuk is correct in what he says his market value is. It's reported at 27.5 is around what he's asking for, 27, 28. And that's accurate. That's based on what Devontae Smith signed for, based on what's going on in the market. I would say that that's Ayuk's value. And it's just a question of, are the Niners willing to pay that, or is that beyond the budget of what they're willing to pay? And if so, then there's all kinds of implications that come from that decision.
Yeah, it is. Because if you think about it, because he wants his money, of course.
Yeah, and he's earned it.
He's earned every right. He's been consistent. And there's no doubt in my mind he deserves a little bit more than Deebo Samuel. I'm not going to dispute that.
Yeah, no doubt.
But speaking of the draft, because I checked out your article, and I'm pretty sure if you tell the audience where they can check out your articles of what you do for the Niners, man, tell them where they can find that.
Just look at NinerCast on Twitter, and then you'll find links to the latest articles. So my last one was a mock draft of saying what I think the Niners will do. It kind of runs off of what they do in their 30 visits and the trip that John Lynch took to Washington, and bringing along Chris Forster with him says a lot in terms of their interest in Rosengarten.
Yeah, that does kind of give me an indication because I've been seeing that picture, and when they go there, it's something obvious. But these would be the question marks for me. Is it that they're interested of the other tackle, Troy, which they can move up on the draft board,
Yeah, the
or
tough.
the tough one? But
You know,
I think realistically, it's Rosengarten, of course.
yeah. Well, Fautanu is consistently ranked from 10 to 16, and they don't really have the ammo unless they trade Ayuk to get up to that level. So I don't think Fautanu is possible. But I do think it's very possible that they went up to Washington to see everybody because there's so many Huskies that are going to get drafted. And so there's a lot of guys that they could check out. But bringing Forrester says that he wants to dot the I's and cross the T's on Rosengarten.
Yeah, he wants to see what he's made from because of the recommendations. Like you just said, it seems like because he was trained by Joe Staley and he played high school football with Luke McCaffrey, and Ed McCaffrey was the coach. So there
Right.
is that dotted connection. So when the word's out there, there could be leaks that we could get Rosengarten, but I looked at your mock draft. You do have him in the first round because of what you said. The top 30 visits kind of gives you the indication that this is what can possibly happen.
But 31 is too early. It's rich for Rosengarten, but it might be that they see a need to have the fifth-year option of a first-rounder, as they took McGlinchey to the fifth year, for example. So it's something they might be looking at. But yeah, ideally you deal down for Rosengarten, and then the question is, okay, where does he go? And most of the stuff that I've seen is he goes from 40 to 50. And so you can't just say, well, we'll take him at the end of the second. He's gone. So you have to figure out how far you drop if you're going to drop. And I wonder if they're going to do that or not. And in my mock, I just said that they're going to value the fifth year option enough that they'll take him a little bit early, and it's a little bit rich, but they'd still be willing to do it. But we'll see.
I think it makes a lot of sense because you want to make sure you have the guy going forward long term, because
Right. Lock him in.
Trent Williams is getting up in age, and McKivitz is kind of proven to be a bridge, but maybe he might be the answer if he builds continuity. Remember, he's getting a first full year as a starter, so maybe they like what they see from the guy.
Possibly, but we'll just see. It comes down to where do they think Rosengarten would get picked. Yeah, and if they think that he goes in the 40s, then it's okay. Can you drop down to the low 40s and then you're still assured of him? It depends on who wants to come up to 31 and what quarterbacks are left. So if somebody wants to move up to 31 and has a pick in the 40s, you can make a trade with them and you're set and you're good. And you can add a fifth rounder to the second, and you've got more trade options to work with, some more ammo.
Yeah.
So ideally, that's what you do is you drop down, but they have to find a trade partner to do that, and they have to go down far enough to get value out of the second pick that they would get, but also high up enough so that they can make sure that they still get Rosengarten. So it's a balancing act. It's how do you do both?
Yeah, how do you give up from there? I mean, there's going to be a quarterback. I think there's going to be a quarterback be available. This might be my bold take. I think Michael Penix might even be the late first round pick. I think since he kind of improved his stock at Washington, I think that's going to raise eyebrows. This may sound crazy, but I think Raiders might even trade up with us, and we might get a good.
There's talk the Raiders might take him at their number one.
Possibly number one, but maybe they might want to get somebody else.
Yeah. Well, if I'm the Raiders, I would want Quidyon Mitchell with my first rounder, and then trade back to go into the late first.
That's what I would do.
Michael Penix. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's with the Niners, though, because there's a lot of bad blood. Niners-Raiders, where the Raiders wouldn't even consider making a trade with the Niners.
Maybe with the new front office, it might be a little different.
Maybe, but it's still Mark Davis is the one that can drive that.
Mark Davis kind of weird, but he low-key kind of likes us. He just doesn't want to compete.
Yeah, well, we'll see. It's just that I think that it's less likely that the Niners would be able to make a deal with the Raiders given the history. That Mark Davis might not be willing. And so if that's the case, the Raiders could be looking to go late first, but not necessarily at 31.
Probably, maybe the Lions pick or something.
Yeah, but somewhere in there,
Yeah,
from like 25 to 32 is somewhere where they could look to trade in. But
yeah,
the Niners at 31, I think that would be less likely if it's the Raiders. And so you're thinking more along the lines of, what if, say, the New York Giants want to move up to get Bo Nix? Maybe that's something where they would be willing to trade to 31.
yeah. It could be, or the Jets, because remember, Rodgers isn't going to be here for long.
Yeah, that's true.
And you look at what's going on with Zach Wilson; he isn't going to be around either. So, Bo Nix
Yeah,
can be in play, or Penix.
yeah. Well, if I'm the Niners, what I want to see happen is for Bo Nix to drop to 31 and then see who's giving me a call. And then you weigh, okay, what's the second rounder that they're going to give us? And if it's in the top 50, then you figure you can still get Rosengard, and then you can pull the trigger.
Yeah, or Carolina might make a move, give us a little bit of something, and they'll probably want to get a receiver or somebody.
Depends on who's there.
Depends on who's there. It's
a
possible.
lot of people like A.D. Mitchell, and
And he could be the guy.
maybe. But Schefter said this week that he's been hearing, and no one's more plugged in, that Mitchell goes higher than what he's been projected at. That the projection normally is 25 to 32 for Mitchell, and Schefter thinks he goes higher. And so if that's the case, then what? For the Niners, if there's talk of they take a receiver at 31, I think that they would fall to Xavier Legette. Would make the most sense. But that's me. That's my bias. I don't want Ladd McConkey. He's too light.
He's
Alabama
more of a slot
took
receiver.
him out. Yeah, I don't want that. And then the Xavier Worthy, incredible speed, but he's light. What the Niners like to do with their receivers and blocking in the run game, I'm not sure Worthy fits that. And so it comes down to, okay, what do you need? That's part of why I arrive at Legette, is that you've got a physical player, a guy that's 6'1", 222, he can block.
Yeah.
And he's got good speed, and he's got incredible hands. So he's the guy that I could see them, if they take a wide receiver at 31, I think Legette makes sense.
But they do really like Malachi Corley a lot, too. So they've been having that guy
on
visits a lot.
Yeah.
So.
And the question is, where does Corley go? And again, that kind of ranges. That can go from as high as 35 to as low as the 50s. Nobody really knows where Corley goes.
And even if you get him at 31, I wouldn't say it's a reach, because if you really like this kid, he's already moving up draft boards. So
he is, but do you really want a Debo sequel? We've seen what has happened with Debo is that he hasn't aged well. He's been hurt a lot. He's missing 4 games. And you've got a limited receiver in terms of limited route tree, okay, hands. With Corley, limited route tree, same physical makeup. Can you play that style of football and stay healthy? And can you be a long-term asset? If I had to choose between Legette or Corley, I'd take Legette every time.
Legette kind of seems more like a really natural receiver, more like everybody keeps saying he's like a AJ Brown, which I can see a little similarity.
Yeah.
He's got the speed like Metcalf, but got the talent like AJ Brown all at once.
Yeah, it's just, I like Legette in that you've got someone that's quick, that runs good routes, that has a large catch radius, reliable hands. He's got everything the Niners could utilize well. But I can understand the argument for Corley. It's with the ball in his hands, Corley is the most dangerous player in the draft.
And hard to tackle, too, so that might be...
and difficult to tackle. But what's the shelf life of a player that plays that kind of game? They've seen that with Debo. It's not that long. And he misses... Debo's now, late 20s, and he's starting to miss 4 games a year.
And that's not something we need to have with this player, but we've seen it. But I think if they take this kid, they know what they're getting. They're already having an idea while Debo's already going to.
Well, you know what you're getting initially. You're getting great value for the first 4 years. And after that, questions can start to come up.
Yeah. And we've seen it with Debo, so we don't know. But Legette would be a good one because of what you said. He could do everything. And Debo's actually worked with him before. So
Right. Yeah, South Carolina.
Yeah, he's trained him or something.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see how that goes. But I still think that based on the visit to Seattle, that the top of their board in terms of who they want to make sure they get is Rosengarten.
Yeah, that kind of seems like I think for a first round pick that I can see us getting, like, I don't think it's going to be offensive line like everybody's thinking. Like, maybe Rosengarten, like you just said, there's the value right there. But sometimes that visit can always be a little off at times. Like, more than likely, we're going to get at least 4 to like 6 players out of those visits because every year that's how we do it. So,
right, yeah, and so it's just a question of which 4 or
which
which
4
5.
are they?
And trying to piece it together. So that's what I was trying to do in my mock article, is saying that, okay, where is the concentration of visits, and then correlate that with what round those players go in.
Yeah, and that's the tricky part. So
Yeah,
I think in the first round we're going to get somebody that we didn't even have a 30 visit with. I think that's what's
could be.
going. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's possible, especially with Jerjon Newton. That
Newton.
he had his pro day so late that he might not be able to get 30 visits in with teams. But the interesting thing to me is they haven't talked to him. Is that they spent time to at least reach out with players at the combine. They didn't talk to Newton.
That can be the pot. That could be the sleeper. He might
Yeah.
slide a little bit because of the injury concern or something. From my understanding,
He might, but his workout, apparently his pro day, was real solid. That he looked really good, and the medicals have cleared him from the Jones fracture. So yeah, he might move up as a result of all of that information. Dallas was there at his workout. I could see the Cowboys taking him.
Yeah,
But if he drops to 31, I can see the Niners definitely being interested in Newton. I think that's a possibility.
Or I can see him go to the Rams and fill in that Aaron Donald role. So it's like
maybe it depends if Byron Murphy is still on the board or not. If Murphy's still there, then you take him instead of Newton.
Well, I think that's going to be the sleeper guy. Like we've actually had some visits with a lot of these players, but it's got to be somebody we're not really like visiting or talking with. So it's got to be somebody. But my gut feeling says we're going to get somebody like a Max Melton for some reason. Because if you met this guy so many times, that kind of gives
he says he's met with the Niners a lot. And
that kind of clears the mess.
You look at Melton in terms of just the physical size, the style of play, his coverage is great.
But
the concern is his missed tackle rate is 26.7%. My God. And you've got a team that needs to tackle, especially to fill in the wide 9. Melton not being able to tackle is a huge red flag for where this defense wants to go. Now, Melton in coverage, you can't ask for more. He's an ideal Niner. Melton tackling. So we'll see what they do, but that's a big question with him is your missed tackle rates over 26.
Yeah.
Not good.
Not good at all. But when you look at all the players that we just checked out, I mean, so Newton would probably be the obvious choice, but he'd probably be gone by then. So it would be like.
Yeah, I think Newton will be gone by the mid to late 20s. But if he does fall to 31, I think the Niners will be interested.
But if there is a player that we have yet to meet with, but it has to be somebody in the first round that we're not even paying attention to, but we're just keeping it low key. I'm thinking of somebody. It has to be we actually met with a lot of them, but except like you said, Newton. I think Newton is like our only hope of maybe we don't show interest and maybe no team will bother with him.
Yeah, where it's just the hidden guy. I think the hidden guy would be Newton. Because you look at the other players, even the DBs, they have at least met with, talked with Cooper DeJean, Kool-Aid. So the DBs were there. I don't think they take Wiggins for the same reason they might not take Melton, that Wiggins is too light. He doesn't provide any run D. And so they pass on Nate Wiggins. So probably if it's DB, Cooper DeJean, and they would look at him as the free safety, not as a DB, I think.
That's how they would probably look at him.
Yeah. And I think that would be more playing to his strengths anyway, is that he's at his best when he sees the play develop and then can react to it as opposed to trying to stay in phase. So I think that's one of the guys they could look at if he drops. I don't think he will, though. Kool-Aid is another one where you have to question what's his commitment to run deep. I think that he's a top 3 cover corner just in terms of his coverage skills, but his run D isn't that great, and his commitment to it isn't that great. Would they then say, nah, Kool-Aid doesn't fit where we want to head in our defense?
I think the sleeper guy, the sleeper dude. Like I haven't seen no visits from this guy. I don't even think anybody's even talking about this guy, but he can definitely be a first round guy. TJ Tampa. I don't think Niners have met.
Maybe. I don't think so. I don't think they've even talked to him. I'm not sure of that. I'd
He
have to look
fits
it
the
up.
mold. He fits
He
exactly.
does. Yeah, he fits the physical mold of what they want. Is a guy that can cover, a guy that can play run D, and bring some physicality, which I think they need.
I
And
think that would
he's
be our
got
guy.
some. He could be, but yeah, is 31 too rich for someone like him?
31 wouldn't be. I wouldn't know. Like he actually is ascending, as a lockdown corner in college,
Yeah.
and maybe it's a reach. But how long ago has it been since the Niners have drafted a cornerback?
Well, they haven't drafted a DB or a safety earlier than the third round throughout this regime.
Yeah, no, but even before the regime, we haven't even drafted a DB for so. I mean, we drafted Jimmy Ward, but he was
Yeah, Jimmy Ward's it.
but he was
He's the only
technically
one.
yeah, he was technically a safety.
Yeah, though they traded, they drafted him knowing that he could play both positions.
But I guess I wouldn't say he was a cornerback. He was technically more of a safety at a college, from my
Yeah,
understanding.
college,
But
I think that the designation was safety, but the thinking was he
the
had the
nickel.
ability to play corner.
Yeah, they had him playing nickel at some points.
Right.
But
But
the
he's the
last
last
one,
one. He's the last first round pick the Niners have used in the secondary.
well, Pari as a safety or versatile guy. But I think as a natural cornerback, we haven't drafted one of the first since Mike Rump. Mike Rump was
Yeah,
but
that's true.
and then the last cornerback we drafted high in the second round was Shante Spencer. I don't think we go anywhere higher than a third or later round. So we don't really go high on these guys.
Probably not. Well, yeah, it's just I think that that's what they designate as the positional value is that they don't assign positional value to DB.
But I think TJ Tampa, he kind of gives
Tampa
me
could. Yeah, he's a guy that can go under the radar, but I think 31's too rich for him.
he kind of reminds me a little bit of Shante Spencer a little bit. Just when
Yeah.
Spencer was at his best,
Yeah.
man. That like nobody even talks about how underrated that guy was on our squad. He was like very consistent, stayed healthy, but at the end of his career, he just wasn't quite the same. But when you had at least 6 or 7 good years ahead of him,
Yeah, well, he was reliable. You always knew what you were going to get from Shante Spencer, and that he wasn't going to hurt you. And I think that that's part of the thing with Tampa is that you know that he would be a contributor, he would be a plus contributor, a guy that can help you. But whether he's what they would want at 31, in my opinion, no. That he's somebody that they would look at if they trade down and they're still thinking DB, that he's somebody that they could look at.
that would probably make sense for the value. But like, don't you want to invest a secondary long term also if you wanted to get somebody like him? Just like you thought about Rosengarten.
Yeah, you do. But I just look at the Seattle visit and say that shows their hand. And their history says they don't value DB that highly.
No, they don't. Like under this regime, it's either a third or less. That's all they look at. So it's like if you're that good of a cornerback and you're in the third round, they might take you.
Maybe. The one that I keep looking to and the one that I mocked in the draft is DeCamerion Richardson because they had a formal interview with him at Indy and they brought him in for a 30 visit. And that shows a lot of interest in the player. And he's somebody that they could get in the 5th round. And that's where they like to pick their DBs.
Yeah, 5th round value. We get guys like Darrell Luter and quite a few other guys.
Yeah, well, we'll see what Luter's got this year. Hopefully he's developed and added to his game physically. And we'll see. But clearly they're going to have a lot of faith in Luter because I don't think they'll take a DB in the first 3 rounds. I think they could take Cooper DeJean if he falls to 31, but he wouldn't go to DB. He'd go to free safety.
That would probably be where we fill that safety role. So, yeah, like
yeah.
So I think
safety, they also have just brought in Bullard and the safeties from Georgia and from SC. Both of them are free safeties. And so that shows a lot of interest. And it's interesting that where they fall is that one of the safeties, the Georgia safety is projected for like 60s and the SC safety is projected for the 90s. And how does that fit in with the other visits?
Yeah, we'll see about it. Like, I think for Javon Bullard, I think he can be a late second to a early third round for a team that likes to, like, because he can play, besides playing safety, he can play nickel.
Right. Yeah, he's got the versatility. He's more of a Jimmy Ward style safety.
Yeah, and Tyke Smith is another one too. He's exactly the same. I
Yeah.
think in other mock drafts, I've seen him go between the third or the fourth round.
Hmm.
He can move up quickly because of
Yeah.
his physicality a little bit. I like his little tackling ability.
Right. Right.
Him
The
and
other safety
Bullard
I like is
are pretty good.
yeah. Both of those guys would really fit well as a free safety. But how does that fit in with their other 30 visits when they've got 230 visits at defensive tackle in the second round, 230 visits at wide receiver in the third round? Where does it all fit in when you then have a safety in the second, a safety in the third? And you're going to have to make some choices. And typically, what Kyle will do is he'll take the offensive weapon in the third.
Yeah, that's what he would always do. Like, they're going to either go best available. So we'll either go defensive line, which I think some of our fans are kind of like underestimating that value because I think there is a little glaring on that position.
Yeah, the free agent signings are outside of Smith. It's just that their projections. We'll just have to see, are they good, are they not?
And you need them for long-term purposes too. So that's why you got the draft.
Yeah.
I mean, when you sign those other guys, those are short terms. They're not going to be here for long.
Yeah, short-term deals. So I think the defensive tackle is clearly a need given that they lost Armstead. So I think that's why they're looking at Michael Hall and brought him in, and Brandon Dorless and brought him in. Clearly they're valuing defensive tackle, and that could also be Newton. So there's 3 guys at defensive tackle that I think they could look at.
Yeah. Like besides the one guy that I see us maybe getting as a D-line, I've seen him on some mock drafts for a while, but I don't think he's popped up lately. But Darius Robinson is somebody that's been on our mock drafts before, and he's kind of like somebody that fits our mold. Like, he can play. He's versatile. And
he's got the inside-outside game that Armstead had. And he's another sleeper. Is someone that is kind of fallen off of the radar in terms of, is this someone the Niners looking at? And he got a blue room visit or a green room visit from ESPN for the draft room where they bring the athletes in and they stay in that room and the TV pans to them when they don't get picked. So Robinson is part of that group. He clearly thinks that he's going to go in the first. And you look at the mocks lately, and Robinson's not there. And he could be the Niners sleeper. I'm not sold on Robinson. I think that part of the reason the Niners might pass is he doesn't have the explosive first step off the line. And he's getting a lot of pub off of his practices at Mobile, but he used a lot of the field to beat his man. It didn't really duplicate an NFL game day setting. So I'm not as sold on Robinson as others. I hope they don't pick him.
I mean, versatility-wise, I like his game a little bit, but like you said, like the get off, like you said, the explosive get off is probably something he has to work on. But the one guy who actually moved up his draft stock can actually make a strong case. But would he be a reach? That's the question. Like, Braden Fisk just seems to like check the boxes a little bit. Like,
he does. He tested very well, didn't he?
Yeah, and his get-offs, it's just...
Yeah, he's got the best get-off of anybody, defensive tackles. His speed was phenomenal.
Would it be a reach if we get him at 31?
Yeah, I don't like Fisk because I don't like what happens after the first 2 steps. It's first 2 steps, then he pops up, and so he makes himself vulnerable. He gets washed out. Does he have great moves once he's made those 2 steps? I watched the Miami Florida State game, and he went up against Javion Cohen. He had 2 tackles, no sacks, no anything. He got eliminated from that game when he faced a draft-worthy opponent. He didn't get it done.
Javion Cohen from Miami, yeah, he might be a very good guard.
He's a guard, and he's projected for 5th, 6th round. And he took Fisk out. Just the Florida State line just washed him out, or the Miami line washed out Florida State. And I also worry about the win rates for Fisk, that his pass rush win rate is under 9%. That's pretty glaring when you're on a defensive line that has Jared Verse.
Yeah, and Jared Verse is a really good edge rusher, so that's going to be
Yeah.
like the most challenging part. But he's going to have better talent around him, so I don't think that's going to be the issue with Fisk. I mean,
Well, yeah, my point is just that Verse would draw attention from an offensive line where they would have to focus on Verse first, Fisk second, and Fisk still wasn't getting it done in pass rush win rate.
okay. I mean, so realistically, how do you see this draft play out? Like you said, like I seen your last mock draft, you think Rosengarten's the guy. I'm not gonna disagree with it. Like I think this is a clear mess. Maybe this is the leak that nobody's aware of. Maybe this is the guy the whole time, or maybe the Niners are trying to sucker in those other teams and saying, "Hey, we're gonna get this guy. You guys better move up and get him." Maybe they're trying to see if they can get somebody sliding a little bit.
They could. Yeah, you've got the talk of the Niners are going to take a wide receiver at 31, and I think that's smokescreen.
That is smokescreen. But the way they're doing with Rosengarten, they're kind of like saying, "Oh, we're going to get him at 31. You guys better move up for him."
That could be. But the pattern, the history of the Niners is that when they get the inside word on a player, and like they did from Herm Edwards with Brandon Ayuk at Arizona State, that when they get an inside word on a guy, they can get even more sold on him. And I think that Staley can give him the inside word on who Rosengarten is, as opposed to what kind of player he is. And that can sell them and say that, we need this guy.
So bold prediction, I'm going to take it 100% on your word. It could be, maybe it won't be smokescreen. Maybe it is, they're convinced. And maybe for our fans, they might just trip about it. But hey, we need to get an offensive lineman. So what are you guys panicking about? But
yeah, well, it's just the fans are so accustomed to in the mock drafts where they got the simulators where it's Tyler Guyton or Jordan Morgan or Kingsley Suamataia, and fans got accustomed to getting to know those guys and trusting them. And now you go further beyond them to Rosengarten. But you also look at how the Niners value the position. They want speed. And Rosengarten ran a 4.92 He was really fast at Indy.
Pretty well.
He fits what they like to do. Technically, he's really sound. His hand placement is good. His leverage is good. The problem is his power, is that he only had 20 bench reps at the combine, and he got beat by power against Michigan in the national championship. So he needs to bulk up. He needs to power up. But once he does that, he's got everything else. And Staley can fill them in on who he is. And if they're sold on that, then we'll see that on draft day. Maybe they do that. I hope they trade down, because I think that you don't need to take Rosengarten at 31. He would be a reach. But I wouldn't be shocked if they do take him, though.
I wouldn't be shocked one bit, because it's already like thrown out there. So like the recommendations, all that stuff. And I think as far as you're like, okay, so as far as you're 100% sure they're going to get Rosengarten.
I'm not 100. I'm just guessing that's what
you're guessing. Okay. Maybe I'm kind of like pulling the gun a little bit, but yeah, I'm guessing. Okay. Since we're playing guessing game, Rosengarten does seem to move up a little bit on the draft boards, but is he worth the 31 pick? I don't think he is, but if a team values him, like, I don't think it matters where you get the player at. If they feel that he's going to be a really good football player, then you take him. So, like, did I like the Aaron Banks pick in the second round at the time? No, but they felt that he was a good value.
Yeah, and eventually he got there. He just needed to get back to where he was on the left side. So let's assume then that Rosengarten at 31, even though it's a reach, or maybe they trade down and they go down around 10 spots and still get him. But I think that in their thinking, given the visit from Lynch and Forster, and having Staley giving his recommendation on top of that Rosengarten, more likely than not, is someone they want.
Yeah, I'm guessing that it's either him or Robinson, one of the two guys. I just think it's one of the two, because they haven't met with him low key, so that could be tricky.
It's something they could do under the radar.
Yeah, they haven't met with TJ Tampa, so those are three possibilities.
Yeah, and Jerjon Newton is the other one that I would add to that
one
mix.
Also too. So I think this year's draft, it's pretty mystery, because we don't really know. We don't know.
We're making educated guesses at best. Basically, get out the dartboard and let's see.
Yeah,
But
last year.
reading the visits, we'll see what happens. But I think that Rosengarten would be leading if we had odds on who's the Niners pick at 31. Rosengarten would have the best odds.
Yeah, last year I actually in the third round I actually had my guess with a safety, but I was just like saying we are going to get a safety in the third round, but I had a guess that it was between Jair Brown or Sidney Brown, one of the two.
Oh, yeah.
But I actually was a little off because I said Sidney Brown, but he was already taken by the Eagles.
Oh, yeah. I had Jair. Jair was my guy. I like Jair. I value competitive greatness in athletes where you do really well when it counts the most. The John Wooden line of competitive greatness where you're at your best when it's needed most. And you did that at Penn State. So he was my guy. I love that they traded up for him. My mock, I got very lucky. I had 4 of their picks and 2 more that I put in my positional previews. So I got lucky in getting the picks. But basically it's methodology. It's take their 30 visits, figure out where that player goes by round, and usually you can then slot each round and say, here's who they're looking at in 2, 3, 4, 5.
You get
and then combine that with formal visits and 30 visits and just how much they talk with this kid. And usually you can put together a pattern that might make sense as far as how they're looking to approach a draft.
Yeah, like when they met with a guy like Max Belton, they like him. When they're bringing in the position coach at a pro day, that's
huge.
I mean, there's quite a few, but even the ones who don't even get in visits, that can be the low key pick.
Could be, yeah, because it's not that every single pick they make is a 30 visit guy.
No,
but it is still the majority is that they will have 4 of their 7 will be visits of some kind.
And they would have them on their roster or something. So that's how it would play out. But
right.
Yeah. I think as far as
Go ahead. So you were asking who else do I have? So got quickly Michael Hall, the defensive tackle from Ohio State, really quick. I think that they'll take defensive tackle in the second because they're looking at Hall and Dorless. Third round, it would be Kyle looking at his offensive weapon. And I think that would be Javon Baker. Talking to Marco Martinez yesterday, he said that that's Kyle's guy. And that sounds like a pick that Kyle would make as an offensive weapon in the third. So Baker in the third from Central Florida. Great contested catch receiver and crafty in separation. Fourth round, I had safety, and that can be whoever. But now that they've brought in more safeties to look at, that changes the dynamic. I also think that they could look at Trevin Wallace, the linebacker from Kentucky, as another player that they could look at in the fourth. Center is another position they can look at in the fourth. So that's Bo Limmer, Hunter Norzad. Fifth round, DeCamerion Richardson, the DB from Mississippi State. They love so much. Sixth round, Eric All from Iowa, the tight end. Michigan, then transferred to Iowa. And seventh round kick returner, and the guy that I like is Anaya Smith from A&M.
I think he would be a good candidate to return kicks because of what he did at Texas A&M. But I've heard a lot about Eric All from the back issues and all that stuff. That can be a serious concern if it becomes a problem going forward.
Yeah, you need to see the medicals and what's really out there. Is it something that's degenerative or is it something that's fixed? But back is always a concern. But they do have a 30 visit with All, and he does go late, which is where they would want to take a tight end based on the other picks. So.
It's basically late because of the issue with the back. I mean, I don't know. You might have to roll the dice with him. So it's like
could be. There's other tight ends they can look at. It's just who's there when they want to take a tight end, who's still on the board. All probably is. Yeah.
So like they have this other tight end, which is Tip Rahman. I think he does everything that Kyle wants him to do. Very limited tight end guy because he wasn't asked to catch the ball a lot. So what can he do with our offense when we give him the ball a little bit? Maybe he might be a little bit better.
Yeah, could be that he's just been limited in terms of the opportunities he's given so far. With Tip that you're going to get a solid blocker. And so Kyle's going to want that blocking before you see the field, you got to make sure that you can get those blocks.
Yeah.
Grandizer 12, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Grandizer, and appreciate it to all the other guys. David Corona's another one, Tile Rob. Guess I didn't get everybody's comments, but Go Rush Gridiron. I think he went under Yukon Gridiron at one point, but what's up? There is a couple of dudes I do like in this draft sleeper. Like I just said, Tip Rahman would probably be the one guy I wouldn't be surprised if you get him later, but there is this linebacker that if we get him, I think you can get him in the very late round, but he would probably be like somebody that you might have to just have on your special teams for right now because we have those other guys. I don't know. But if we were to go for a linebacker like later, I would say Nathaniel Watson would probably be somebody I just really like the most.
Okay. Yeah, good athlete.
Good athlete, fits the mold, and I would think AJ Wright would pound the table for this kid.
You would hope. Just that there's going to be some players like that, and Trevor Wallace the same thing, where it's just basically you're taking the athletic talent and then you're banking on your position coaches to take them up to NFL level.
Yeah.
And that's what they'd be doing with either one of those linebackers. But it works that you identify the physical skill sets and then you mold them. And the Niners have done that really well.
Yeah, they've done it pretty well with some of those players. Like, I think if we're not going to go for a receiver early, there is a receiver we can get really late. And I really like this kid, but nobody's really talking about him as much. But you look at the rest of the receivers from Texas, right? You see Xavier Worthy, you see A.D. Mitchell, Sanders, the tight end, right?
Yeah.
But Jordan Whittington is another guy that people need to pay attention to. Like he's
he's under the radar, but capable, good skills. And somebody that can fit, somebody that can make a roster.
Yeah.
Somebody late. But I would think that if they I think they will go with a receiver at some point, first or third. And so if it's first, Leggett, if it's third, Javon Baker, and then another receiver later that would also be a kick returner. And that's where you can look at Anaya Smith or somebody else, Devron Harper from Mercer, who has just a huge amount of return yardage for them. Kalen Robinson from Texas, the running back who returns kicks. He had a 95-yard touchdown return this year. So there's a lot of guys you could look at as returners that would be that late guy who might make the team as sort of a weapon that they could use now and then that would work, that could fit.
Yeah, like there's some late rounder guys like this Tyrell Harrell. He's got the fastest speed, but he can return kicks from my understanding.
Yeah. There's a lot of guys. This is a good year for returners.
Yeah, and I think this is the new rule that can benefit certain players like this. But since you're talking about those other receivers, the one guy that's not getting much of the buzz because of lately the other receiver is, but Jalen McMillan's one of my sleepers. Like I think he's actually moving up a little bit. And he can run the routes, he can block, and he'll do exactly what Kyle wants him to do.
Yeah, and they met with him at Mobile, and I think that's somebody they're looking at. And that might have been someone that they evaluated when they made the trip up to Seattle, as they also looked at the receivers.
Yeah,
Polka's and McMillan is a solid player. Now, he got hurt, and so that he was out of the mix for a while, and then he got healthy late, and he was a key contributor for them down the stretch run. The only question that I have with McMillan is his hands, is that he can drop or he can have issues trying to catch outside of his body in the frame of making pure catches with his hands. He can have some issues with that. I live in Seattle, so I saw most of the Washington games, and that's a possibility. And David talking about Sione Vaki, and he came in as a 30 visit guy.
I think he was a running back too and a safety.
Yeah, Swiss Army knife is that he's a safety that's a big hitter, brings a big load, and he got some time at running back at Utah. And that's somebody where you could just throw him to the wolves and say, okay, kid, let's see what you can do as a returner. And he might be dynamite. But there's a lot of guys they can look at a kick returner. I mean, bringing in Trent Taylor. Come on now. You've got a lot of guys that can return the ball.
Yeah, Trent is like the one that won't mess it up for you is the thing. I mean, if we were going to sign Trent Taylor, you could have at least signed Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah.
Maybe he could have done something for us.
You could do a little bit better, but yeah.
I mean,
We'll see, but I would hope that they're still going to evaluate kick returner because there's so many good ones in this draft. You need to take into that. You need to tap into that.
yeah, Larry
Take
Krueger.
advantage of what the draft gives you.
Yeah, Larry Krueger's kind of pounding the table for Tyler Harrell. He thinks he's got speed and returnability that could be a difference maker.
He does. He does. He's a good player. He's one that they would evaluate. They brought in Jacob Cowling from Arizona, so he's somebody that they'll look at also. But if I had to look at the returners, I would say that the kid from Mercer, because you look at his stats, they're insane. His return stats are nuts. And then Anaya Smith from A&M, I just think he's a nice player. Stop-start accelerator, great hands, reads the field well, makes good cuts. I think he could be a good returner.
I think there's another good returner like Taj Washington. I think he can do returns also if he was asked to.
Yeah, give him the opportunity. I think that he could take advantage of that.
So they just met with Blake Watson. I think he has returnability also, if I'm mistaken.
Yeah, well, he's got the speed, and so you've got a running back that's got that much speed. He could work as a returner also. They didn't bring him in for a visit, but they talked with him.
I think that's what they had him is like they talked with him, not like a visit or something. But
right,
it seems like they're very interested in him because he ran a 4.39 or something like that.
Yeah, real quick. The concern though is he's 24, so that's part of this draft is that with the COVID year, there's older players.
Yep, COVID year was pretty much the impact for all of them. So they had some of them wouldn't be in the pros if it wasn't for this COVID year for them.
Right.
Yeah, because the oldest player that I interviewed in this year's draft was Rocky Lombardi, and I think he's about 25 or 24 years old, but he's a quarterback from Northern Illinois.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, that quarterback, I wouldn't be worried about age at quarterback, but I would be worried about age at running back, wide receiver, etc.
Ooh, I like this question by Grandizer. Question: how far do you think DeAndre Swift will drop? Have the 49ers came in publicly said DeAndre Swift is a no if regard? I don't think they've ever had any interest with him personally because he doesn't fit the mold.
Yeah, is the Niners tend to avoid the mountains. They
even though we should get one.
Yeah, because Devondre Sweat's over 360. They passed on DeJuan Jones last year because he's just too big for them. So I think that they don't consider that. But I think the factor that could happen with Sweat is that there's other defensive tackles that might move up from where you would expect them to go because Sweat's no longer there to be picked. And so everybody goes up. And I think that could be a factor is that some guys will go higher than they should because Sweat's dropping from where he was initially.
Yeah, I think McKinney Jackson's going to move up a little more on him.
Yeah, though Jackson ran such a slow 40 at Indy that I think that he's going to be hurt regardless.
But he's still going to move up a little on Sweat a little bit.
He should. Yeah, everybody should get a Sweat bump. If you're like fourth round or higher at defensive tackle, you probably move up a little bit.
And I don't know, his draft stock's going to drop since he got in trouble. So
yeah, DUI is not a good thing, especially this close to the draft. It doesn't show judgment.
Especially in the state of California, they take it very serious over there.
Yeah.
But I think we pretty much cover all the players that we're looking into. So we'll definitely catch on some more on some upcoming seasons. But before we go on a high note on this, man, I got one draft sleeper that might be somebody that I'd be okay with if we were to go this route. So let's say we don't go offensive line as early as everybody else.
Okay.
So if you want to make this line better and you want to take the value like we've done in the previous years, let's get those two guys from South Dakota State. Let's get Mason McCormick. Let's get Garrett Greenfield. Let's just get those two guys, and maybe that makes up for not going into the early rounds with those linemen.
Yeah, I love McCormick. I think that his physical tools are phenomenal, and they fit what the Niners would want. You got somebody that's quick, that's powerful, that's smart. Now, granted, he's South Dakota State, so he hasn't played the great competition, but
he's shown it.
Look at what he brings. What are the tools that he has? I think that he could work. I would hope that they're considering him, and it's just a question of where does he go. I've seen some people say that they love him so much they say second round. I don't think that'll happen. I think he'll probably go third, fourth, depending. But this center class is just beyond deep, and that's why you don't need to go center at 31. There are people that have said there's at least 10 centers in this draft that will start by the end of their rookie deals.
Well, I hope it's one of them that replaces Brendo. That's what I'm hoping for.
Well, and they have to, because Brendel's what, 31, 32?
And his contract is year to year, so it's not like it's not like they stuck with his contract.
You need to get somebody. So in my mock, I have Limmer, and I would also be fine with Norzad. Either one of those guys, I believe in them. I think that they could do a great job.
Yeah, even Miss McCormick can even move him.
And McCormick too, sure.
Yeah, I mean Barton is another one, but I think he would. I think him and Jackson Powers would probably be the only ones that probably get a first round out of this one.
Yeah, if that. I think that Barton is now the consensus first round center. And thanks again, Grant. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
And we'll see, but I think that Barton is the only center that's going to go in the first, and the JPJ and Zach Frazier will go early second.
Oh, so you don't think Jackson Powers is going to be in the first round?
No.
I think I've heard he can even play a little bit of guard if they have.
He can. He's got the physical skill set for it. He could.
That's a good bold take. So you think Jackson Powers is going to be the second round? Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, but early. Yeah, he'll be early second.
Like a team that's probably going to get him is probably a bad team, and they're going to probably get him as a starting caliber center or something. Yeah, like the Panthers, I can see.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of teams that will value the player, but the position value might drop it down. So center isn't highly valued as a position, so it gets hurt, gets bumped down as a result. And I think that JPJ could be hurt by that. I think that he's a first-round talent in terms of he belongs as one of the best 31 players, 32. But the word is that he's going to go in the second.
That's fair enough. Yeah, bro. So we did pretty well on this cover up. So whatever your most available schedule, we'll work something down the road. But hey, man, it was a lot of fun. And
yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
thanks, man.
Yeah, anytime. And for everybody else, man, go check him out on Twitter. He goes under NinerCast. Tom Jensen. Check out his article. He covers a lot of different stuff with Niners. Check out his latest mock draft. It's actually it's pretty interesting, man. Like he gives you different reasons why he made the pick and why he thinks this way.
I try to lay out the logic of why the Niners would pick this guy, but usually it's driven by the 30 visits and just where the slotting would go. Once you figure out the slotting of who would they take by position where, then it starts to fall into place.
Yeah, it sure does. So, like, yeah, man, but definitely appreciate it, man. I did get a chance to check it out because I couldn't find the article. I was looking for it, and I'm like, did you put any other articles? So I was asking for that.
Yeah, so I sent it to you.
And I checked it out.
Sure. But yeah, please check it out. But thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. And thanks again, CG. Great time.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Anytime. And thank you guys for tuning in. And you guys have a great day. Go Niners.